Spectrum Designs is no ordinary custom apparel and promotional items business. A company with a cause, Spectrum Designs, along with Spectrum Bakes and Spectrum Suds, have a social mission to create meaningful and inclusive employment opportunities for people on the autism spectrum. As a nonprofit, 100% of their profits go directly back to their mission. With over 13 years of experience working with adults on the autism spectrum, Patrick Bardsley is the organization's co-founder and CEO, who has created more than 50 jobs in a neurodiverse workforce.
Recognizing that brain differences aren't deficits, you co-founded Spectrum Designs. Patrick, please tell us about your mission to create employment opportunities for people on the autism spectrum. And please share how Spectrum Designs began.
Yeah, so Spectrum Designs Foundation is, well, first of all, thank you so much for having me, and it's my honor to be part of this, and I so admire the work you're doing. We started Spectrum Designs about 11 years ago, myself and two mothers of children on the autism spectrum who were facing a future of uncertainty, a future where the safety, the productivity, the fulfillment of their child was really not certain, and that's terrifying, I think, for a parent. And so, we wanted to change that. And what the mission really is of Spectrum Designs is to create employment and vocational training opportunities in real businesses, social enterprises. And so we started that with an apparel business in a backyard barn in New York in 2011. And as the years went on, we added a second and a third business, granola bakery, commercial bakery, and a laundry business. The real genesis was a mother's love, and necessity being the mother of all invention, and saying, hey, we've got this serious situation, and how do we blaze a trail for others to follow?
I love that. So by adapting and by innovating, the evolution of Spectrum Designs has been supported. Can you share specific examples of adaptation and innovation that you've adopted in this workplace that you've created?
So many I can give you, and the amazing thing about them is that they're so simple, right? So we created with our partner, the Nicholas Center, a visual workplace. And what we mean by that is simple things like markings on the floor, like footprints of where to stand, or arrows on things, which direction they go, or images that pair with names of things. So we have a print machine that has 8 arms, and we have a picture of an octopus above it to say, hey, that's print machine number 1, picture of the octopus. So that if you have auditory processing challenges or things like that, you can use the visual cue. And the amazing thing about it is it's benefited everyone. It's universal design. It's made us more efficient by 2 to 3 times, everyone. I always think about when you're on an airplane and you need to get off as quickly as possible. You don't have a set of verbal or written instructions. On the back of your seat is a cartoon, essentially, of the fastest way. It's super visual. And that's because it has to be done quickly and efficiently. And so what we did by making our workplace much more visual and really inclusive of everyone, benefited everyone. And I think that's what's so incredible about making these changes.
That is awesome. And you're just, so like you say, just that it's something that's so simple and that doesn't benefit just one group, but the whole group. And I think that's amazing.
Yeah, and it's as simple as laminating and tape and things like that. Now, of course, there are more complex adaptations you can make, and we have made, but those are just the more simple ones that are less overwhelming, or we're not splitting the atom when we're doing them.
Right. Recognizing your employees as your greatest resources, how is the environment and energy at Spectrum Designs different perhaps from other companies?
Yeah, I think this is one of our superpowers, having a culture and it's really a judgment-free zone. You can't work here if you're not willing to be truly, truly inclusive and tolerant of difference. When we think of diversity and inclusion, there's a great kind of saying, which is, diversity is being invited to the party, inclusion's being asked to dance. And I think what true inclusion is asking people to dance. And so that's what we have here. People of all abilities, of all kinds of minds, work in all different areas of the business. And it just creates the most accepting, tolerant, inclusive environment you could ever have. And yeah, I think wasn't part of the master plan. We were really just like, how do we create jobs? But as with everything, you know, the beauty is in the detail, and what's come of it is something really magical. And I think when you have a philosophy of like, not all great minds have to think alike, you end up with just a world and a community and a group of people that appreciate all different sets of perspectives and minds.
I love that. And I love that it's not like, oh, we'll just create a job. Creating a job, a space with intention, and recognition of that individual. You know, so speaking of individuals, to ensure the success of a strong team at Spectrum Designs, you focus on individual strengths. So in what ways do you support each individual in the workplace? Like how can you do that at scale?
Yeah, so I think a few things. Philosophically, you got to start presuming competence. So when someone comes in, don't try and create a list of the things they're unable to do, because we don't do that to each other. We do, you know, look at competence, presume competence. In terms of kind of structurally and programmatically, we have an incredible human service partner who allow us to focus on the employment piece and the business side of things. And that's the Nicholas Center, who I mentioned, and I'm fortunate enough to be a co-founder of them. Their educators and their staff really support our individuals, from those who need one-on-one support in a new task or learning a new skill, all the way up to those who need a 1-hour check-in every week or every month just to see how they're doing. So it's a really tailored and person-centered approach, but it's what makes it special. I think the other thing that we do as a business that sets us apart a little bit is our human resource model, and our head of human resources is a licensed master social worker. That's a little different from your traditional HR department approach. And I think it's actually an approach that I think corporate America and everyone should really try, because 1 in 4 of us experience mental health challenges. You know, this is the same thing as I was talking about earlier. You make an adaptation for one and it ends up benefiting so many more. I benefit from the human resource approach that we have, you know, and so many more of our employees do. So, you know, we realized quite early on that employment was good and it was great to get people in the door, but retention is really where the rubber meets the road. And we had to get good at that too. And so that model and the Nicholas Center partnership is really, I think, what allows us to focus on individual brilliance and meet people where they're at and bring them up from there.
I love that, just to meet people where they're at. You know, so in addition, now you referenced this a moment ago when we started, but in addition to Spectrum Designs, you have Spectrum Bakes, Spectrum Suds. So please tell us about these endeavors. I'm curious as to why these were the next steps that you wanted to take, the next things you wanted to explore. And then also if there are other organizations that were going to be coming to the spectrum of business.
Yeah, I like that. So yeah, it was about 5 years ago, and we were 5 years into the apparel business, and we wanted to kind of diversify a little bit, and we didn't want it to be that just because someone had a different ability that they just made t-shirts. So we wanted to try and see if there were other businesses that they could work in and gain skills that were maybe transferable into life as well. And we also had to think about the nature of the businesses, because when you think about food, when you think about t-shirt printing, food like cooking and baking and laundry, they're so different. But when you break them down and task analyze them, they're very concrete. You know, when there's a clear beginning, middle, and end, and that's kind of inherently reinforcing for anyone. So when we get busy and I get to go down there and help bake or help do laundry or it's reinforcing, because you know when you're finished and done, and that can be very reinforcing for our population. So if you think about making a t-shirt, you know, you start with a blank product, you execute certain steps, you package them, and they go. With baking, you get the ingredients together, you package them, you bake them, then they go. Laundry, you sort by size, by color, and you wash them, and then they go. So versus like a janitorial job or something where maybe it's more subjective as to when the job's done, when you're cleaning, you know, like, is that floor done? Well, Ali thinks it is, but Patrick thinks it needs to be more clean. You know, it's just a different approach. And so those businesses we found to be really suitable and really beneficial for our employees and all of us. And yeah, in terms of the future, who knows? We want to make sure we're continuing to grow with strength, and we don't want to become a kind of jack of all trades and a master of none. So we'll see, though. We'll see. I think we're always looking at opportunities to have impact. And if there's ways we can do that with our existing businesses or with new opportunities, we're going to pursue them, and we're going to pursue them as avidly as we have everything else, because it's really about, it's not necessarily about the businesses or the industries. It's about what the impact is of them.
Right. Well, I think it's so brilliant when you speak to the fact that why this specific task, why pursue this, and to note the fact that it does have a finite beginning and a finite end.
Yeah.
And for any of us to be able to see that start to finish, it's one of the reasons that I love doing the dishes. I can take something very dirty, make it very clean, and I did that.
Yeah,
there's
very
something
clean.
that's amazing.
Yeah, it is.
So, so acknowledging and accepting neurodiversity isn't enough, not for sustainable change in our society regarding the stigma that surrounds it. So neurodiversity, it really needs to be appreciated. More than acknowledged, accepted, needs to be appreciated. And your model embodies this. Your model does this. What parts of your model, of your mindset, Patrick, can other businesses adopt to become more truly inclusive right now, right this moment? What can people do right now?
I think, as I said earlier, I think it starts with presumed competence. I think, if you can reframe, and that's why I love the term neurodiversity, by the way, because neurodiversity is really defined as just natural deviations in neurological thinking, essentially, which we kind of all have, but it's a natural thing. And I think that's a powerful, language can be powerful, and to get hold of that and to kind of move away from disability, even though it's a label that has been useful in the past, to start celebrating neurodiversity and start talking about it as something that occurs naturally. You can then shift and start focusing on strengths and ability rather than looking at what people can't do or historically how things have been. So I think it really starts with the language and the terminology, and then it's moving to new patterns of thought. And as you say, Ali, celebrating accomplishments and achievements and recognizing ability and recognizing the power of all kinds of minds and the value it brings in problem solving, in solving some of the biggest problems we have, different kinds of minds. And I think, Spectrum Designs demonstrates that and demonstrates that with the products that we put out and the capabilities of the workforce we have. And I think it's all in the messaging, and it's all in how you present it. And hopefully, as we go into the next decade, the largest minority group in the planet is the differently abled population, yet not always the loudest voice. And so how do we share that voice? How do we celebrate those voices? How do we celebrate all kinds of minds?
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. Well, just the work that you're doing is something to be celebrated and recognized for to be more of a model for all of us to adopt. The fact that you're doing it, how you're doing it, I just can't thank you enough for sharing your story and sharing your work and helping all of us become a bit more aware now. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Ali. Thank you.
Thank you.